The crisp air of early December carried the scent of pine and potential, whispering promises of a holiday season that would illuminate every corner of our quaint neighborhood with warmth and cheer. I watched as my neighbors began their annual transformation, twinkling lights climbing up gutters, vibrant wreaths adorning doors, inflatable Santas staking their claim on front lawns. It was a tradition, a celebration that painted our little slice of suburbia with the strokes of camaraderie and joy. Yet, in this tapestry of community spirit, there was a thread that often snagged, a tension that hummed beneath the surface like a distant storm. Her name was Karen. Self-appointed overseer of the Homeowners Association, her presence was as inescapable as it was polarizing. With eyes keen as a hawk's and a voice that could pierce the serenity of a Sunday morning, Karen wielded the HOA rulebook with the precision of a surgeon. For her, order was not a suggestion but a doctrine, and deviation was tantamount to rebellion. It began with a note, neatly typed, affixed with immaculate precision to my front door, a notice citing me for excessive holiday spirit. I read it twice, then a third time, the words both absurd and infuriating. My offense? A series of lights that danced from my rooftop to the oak tree in the yard, a cascade of color meant to evoke nothing more than a smile from passers-by. I stood there, staring at the letter, the cold seeping through my slippers. A chuckle escaped me, quiet, almost incredulous. Of course it was Karen. Who else would find fault in festivity, in the simple joy of a season meant to uplift? I imagined her writing it, her face set in that self-righteous scowl, each keystroke a declaration of her authority. But, rather than anger, I felt something else. A quiet resolve, steely and understated like the first breath of dawn breaking a long, cold night. I wasn't one for confrontation. My arsenal consisted of patience and a penchant for irony. Two things I believed Karen had yet to encounter in forceful combination. As the days passed, I adhered to her mandate. The lights were dimmed, the tree stripped of its exuberance. Yet in their absence, I found clarity. Karen's insistence on control was a facade, a brittle wall against the exuberance of life she could not regulate. And so, under the guise of compliance, I began to plan. The permit she had clung to as a weapon, the one demanding decorum and decorations, was flawed. A loophole, small yet significant, revealed itself upon closer inspection. You see, the permit required a fee, hefty enough to deter most, yet its very existence violated a local ordinance. In her zeal, Karen had overreached, creating a rule that was her own undoing. As I sat at my kitchen table, sipping coffee and surveying the now muted decorations, I imagined the outcome, a scene where irony served as the ultimate judge. A day when Karen would witness the HOA, her fortress of bureaucracy, dismantled by her own hand. For now, though, I waited, biding my time like a chess player sensing checkmate in the moves to come. Patience was my ally, irony my accomplice. In the quiet of my home, the lights were dimmed, but my spirit burned brightly, ready for Act 2 of this unfolding drama. The first inkling of escalation arrived in the form of a white envelope, pristine as fresh snowfall, delivered with the precision of a sniper. It bore the ominous logo of the HOA, a stylized tree that was more about order than growth. Inside, the words, "Excessive holiday spirit" were printed with all the severity of a court summons. Karen had struck again. She was an artist of bureaucracy, weaving absurd rules into a tapestry of control. This time, the complaint was not just about the number of lights adorning my house, but their intensity. A nuisance to the community, the notice dictated, as though cheer itself was a contagion to be quarantined. I chuckled at the absurdity, a hollow sound in the stillness of my living room. Outside, the twinkling lights reflected in the windows like a galaxy of muted stars. Perhaps, I mused, the universe itself had conspired against me. Or maybe it was just Karen, with her ever-watchful eyes, scrutinizing every flicker, every glint. Rumors flitted through the neighborhood like restless spirits, whispers of new restrictions and regulations. It was said that Karen had enlisted allies, other residents swayed by the allure of power wrapped in the guise of community service. They gathered on porches, beneath the watchful gaze of wreaths and garlands, their conversations punctuated by nods and knowing glances. The next day, another citation arrived. This one decried my penchant for inflatable decorations, a veritable zoo of festive creatures that danced in the winter wind. Visual clutter, it said. I imagined Karen standing in her immaculate kitchen, drafting these notices with the precision of a general planning an invasion. In the aftermath, I received knowing looks from neighbors. Some offered silent support, a mere nod or a brief thumbs up as they passed by. Others avoided eye contact, fearing association or retribution. The street, once vibrant with camaraderie, now felt like a battlefield strewn with suspicion. My resolve strengthened with each citation. I perused the HOA's rulebook, a tome of contradictions and loopholes. I discovered the new permit system, a labyrinthine process birthed from Karen's crusade for conformity. It was designed to discourage, to dissuade through red tape and bureaucratic fatigue. But they underestimated my patience, my quiet defiance. I filed the necessary forms, paid the fees, jumped through every hoop with the grace of a seasoned acrobat. The system they built to suppress became my weapon. I turned their own rules against them, knowing that the cost of enforcement would be staggering. Evenings were spent crafting my response, a tapestry of compliance and subtle rebellion. I documented everything, from the precise lumens of my festive lights to the safe positioning of each inflatable. Evidence, in Karen's world, was a double-edged sword, and I wielded it with precision. The air grew colder, the nights longer, but my lights stayed bright, a beacon of defiance against the encroaching shadow of authoritarian cheerlessness. Karen's influence loomed large, but my spirit loomed larger. I would endure, for in the quiet rebellion of my holiday decor, I found purpose. And in purpose, there was strength. The HOA meeting ended with a murmur of voices and the faint clicking of heels on polished floors. Karen, ever the orchestrator of suburban conformity, had her victory, at least for now. My excessive holiday spirit had been deemed a violation, a blight upon the monochromatic tapestry of our neighborhood. As I walked home, a quiet determination settled in my chest like a stone. The trees swayed in the gentle evening breeze, their branches whispering secrets of resilience and rebellion. Each step on the cracked sidewalk resonated with my resolve. They wanted compliance, but I would give them something far more memorable. That night, I surveyed my modest domain. The strings of twinkling lights draped over the eaves, the inflatable snowman standing sentinel in the front yard, and the candy cane path leading to the front door. Each piece was a testament to joy, a beacon against the mundane. The irony of it all made me smile. They created a rule, but they forgot the rule was a two-edged sword. The following week, I filed for a permit, exploiting the very loophole they had introduced. A permit required fees, and fees meant funding, all of which would have to be paid by the HOA under the new guidelines they'd gleefully set in motion. No one expected anyone to actually use them. Bureaucracy at its finest. Word spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. The HOA treasury, once flush from its annual dues, strained under the weight of unexpected expenses. The neighbors, who had been content to let Karen reign, began to stir. Whispers of dissent floated through the cul-de-sacs, riding on the backs of autumn leaves. Did you hear about the permit? They asked each other in hushed tones. The story twisted and turned, growing more elaborate with each retelling, as stories often do. I became a sort of folk hero, an unassuming David against a tyrannical Goliath. Karen, of course, maintained her composure, a brittle facade of authority. But beneath her carefully curated smile, a tension brewed. Her control, once absolute, started to slip through her fingers like grains of sand. The neighborhood watched, a silent Greek chorus, reveling in the unfolding drama. As December crept closer, the winds carried the chill of change. Neighbors, emboldened by my quiet defiance, began to decorate with renewed fervor. Lights appeared on houses that had once been bare. Wreaths adorned doors with a defiant cheer. The neighborhood shimmered with a collective spirit that no HOA citation could extinguish. In the heart of it all, I felt a sense of connection with those around me, an unspoken bond forged in the fires of shared rebellion. Our community was more than lines on a map or names on a list. It was a tapestry of lives, woven together in the glow of holiday lights, each thread telling its own story. Karen's grip on the neighborhood weakened, not through confrontation, but through celebration. The irony of her downfall lay in her own making, a final testament to the power of unexpected alliances and the beauty of a single twinkling light piercing the darkness. As I stood on my porch, watching the neighborhood come alive with color and warmth, I realized this was more than just revenge. It was a reminder that sometimes the strongest battles are fought not with words or weapons, but with the simple act of living joyfully despite the odds. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all. The night was cloaked in silence, the kind that hangs in the air before a storm breaks. I sat by the window, watching the world outside shiver in anticipation. Christmas lights from each house flickered gently, their hues reflecting against the crisp layer of snow that blanketed our cul-de-sac, the kind of scene that made poets weep. Yet beneath it, a war of sorts simmered, unseen but potent. Karen had tried to strangle our joy with her rules, her permit demands, her visions of conformity. For too long, she had wielded her clipboard like a sword, cutting down anything that threatened her kingdom of control. But kingdoms built on sand can only last so long. The excessive holiday spirit citation had been her coup de grace, a desperate last attempt to reign supreme. Her creation of the permit felt like a final gasp, a paper dragon that would crumble under its own weight. And crumble it did. I leaned back in my chair, a satisfied smirk playing on my lips as the memory of yesterday's board meeting replayed in my mind. The room had been filled with a mix of anticipation and apprehension, the smell of coffee and tension hanging heavy in the air. Karen had sat at the head of the table, her posture rigid, her eyes scanning the room with the sharpness of a hawk. But then, clarity poured in like the soft morning light revealing the cracks in her fortress. The permit, her pride and joy, was riddled with inconsistencies and loopholes that even she couldn't defend. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very rule she had crafted to suppress was the same one that exposed her. There's a certain satisfaction in watching justice unfold in slow motion, a quiet thrill in knowing that sometimes the universe rights itself in the most unexpected ways. As the board dissected her permit, her confidence withered, shrinking with each pointed question, each unanswerable flaw. It was subtle at first. The tapping of her pen quickened. The corners of her mouth twitched. Her voice, once commanding, turned brittle as autumn leaves, until finally she was silent, her gaze falling to the papers in front of her, a landscape of her own making, now foreign and unfriendly. The board's decision was swift, like a guillotine's drop, cleaving her authority, not out of malice, but necessity. The permit was rescinded, the citation nullified, the community was set free. As I watched from my window, the lights danced merrily, a celebration of resilience. Neighbors ventured outside, exchanges filled with laughter and relief. The oppressive air lifted, replaced by something warmer, more human, a gentle revolution, quiet but profound. Karen remained, her presence reduced to whispers and distant echoes. She had been a force, a storm in her own right, but even storms pass. The neighborhood, like a garden after rain, thrived once more, its colors more vibrant than ever. There was no need for overt victory laps or grand gestures. Sometimes the most powerful wins are quiet, woven into the fabric of everyday life. And as I stepped over the threshold, joining my neighbors, the chill of the night air was tempered by the warmth of newfound camaraderie. In that moment it was clear, the spirit of the holidays, excessive or not, was ours to cherish. And no permit could ever change that.